Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Two Saints show with myself, Mark C, my co-host, Mark H. Afternoon, Mark.
Afternoon, Mark.
How you doing?
Yeah, as I say, busy kind of week, obviously, in the build-up to the Premier League restarting. And, yeah, we've got a lot to get through today, so I'll push that and we'll get on with the show. But just to say to all the listeners, I hope they're all keeping safe and well.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the Two Saints are thoroughly looking forward to the restart of the Premier League and looking forward to our team and us marching in again. So, anyway, moving on today, coming up in today's show, we've actually got Saints Club news, other football news and Saints transfer news, and we also have an update on Premier League scores from today, and we also have our preview of Norwich versus Saints, and I believe we might be throwing another game in there for you as well. So look forward to doing that. I'd also like to remind everybody we have our Facebook page, Two Saints Show. If you go on there, you can check out our latest podcast. You can also request it to be sent to you directly by messaging us on that page. And we've also got our YouTube channel, the Two Saints Podcast Show. All our podcasts are up on there now. You can go on there and you can check that out. You can subscribe to the channel and leave us any feedback you want to give us.
Fiesta FM Southampton 95.0 FM.
Disclaimer. The following program contains language, views and opinions that may be unsuitable for some listeners. This is not necessarily a view or judgment of Fiesta FM, its management, other hosts or advertisers. The show is for entertainment purpose only and is not intended to defame, insult or offend anybody in any shape or form whatsoever. Listeners are advised to exercise caution in their own environment when listening to the show.
It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Two Saints Show. The Two Saints Show here on Fiesta FM. Tune in every Thursday 12 till 2 for informative football chat and great tunes.
So, coming up today, we'll go through the topics we've got for you and we'll come back and start from the beginning like we always do. So, players' shirts to carry NHS and Black Lives Matter's messaging. Smallbone hopes to have Saints move on from former stars. Family duo named Saints Foundation ambassadors. Ings wants to emulate fans' favourite Lambert. Ryan Bertrand, Southampton fullback, has boardroom ambitions. Ralph Hasenhüttl could hand 21-year-old his Saints debut despite contract uncertainty. Southampton fear exciting teenager will leave in July, new contract not signed. And that'll bring us to the end of that section. So we'll go back to the beginning and we'll start with player shirts to carry NHS and Black Lives Matter's messaging. The Premier League today issued the following statement detailing player shirts will be supporting the NHS and Black Lives Matters when matches restart. The Premier League players from all 20 clubs have made the following statement. We, the players, stand together with the singular objective of eradicating racial prejudice wherever it exists, bring about a global society of inclusion, respect and equal opportunities for all, regardless of colour or creed. This symbol is a sign of unity from all players, all staff, all clubs, all match officials and the Premier League. Black Lives Matter, players together, which is absolutely fantastic. And that will be carried on the shirts, Mark, for the first 12 matches. So it's Black Lives Matter on the back of the shirts, along with a badge thanking the NHS for their work during the COVID-19 pandemic on the front of the shirts.
So it's actually even after this season ends and going into next season for the first 3 games then, yeah?
Yep. It's the first 12 matches of the restarted 1920 season. So obviously, all the games are going on.
That's good. I mean, just you know, the only thing I would say about I mean, I'm going to speak about the NHS in a minute, but in relation to Black Lives Matter, I mean, you know, just in a football sense, Mark, right? I mean, you know, the equality thing in football is really important because when you look at the amount of players that play, you know, just in the Premier League that are black, you know, and there isn't, you know, when you look, even if you take managers and assistant managers, right? But if you go down even further than that, coaching staff, support staff, right? Yeah. There isn't the same representation, you know, absolutely, behind the scenes. So it's definitely something, you know, from a, and I'm just talking about from a football point of view, it's definitely something that needs to be tackled because, you know, as I've said to you before, I can think of 2 black players that are fully qualified, and yet they haven't had the opportunities, and they've lowered their expectations in what, they were prepared to be employed in. So, all I'm saying is yes, no, definitely. And then the NHS one, well, you don't really need to say anything on that front, to be honest with you. It's a marvelous job that they've been doing, and
absolutely.
So yeah, but
yeah, I mean, we all know the NHS's job can't be underestimated in the UK, because obviously we get our health service for free, whereas other countries like the US, you have to pay for it. So we should be very, very grateful for the NHS we do have, because it is a fantastic organisation. And it does matter. And obviously Black Lives Matter as well.
Yeah, 100%, mate. 100%,
Definitely. So I think we'll move on to our next topic, and this is Will Smallbone, saying that he hopes to help Saints move on from former stars, which is great. He hopes he can help Saints move on from the likes of Gareth Bale and Luke Shaw after signing a new 4-year deal. He joined the club's academy at 8 years old, same age as James Ward-Prowse at the time when he joined them, interestingly enough. And it looked up to the likes of Champions League winner Bale, Shaw and fellow midfielder James Ward-Prowse. After developing a string of top-flight players in years gone by, Saints believe Smallbone can lead the future generation of stars, and the St Mary's youngster has the same ambition. That's a dream, he said. He told the Daily Echo when asked about helping the club move on from the likes of Bale and Shaw. As you come through the academy, you're looking up to them and other players. But it's now time for us to push on and create our own legacy. Absolutely, Will. Couldn't agree with you more. And me and Mark certainly hoping that you'll be one of those players that will be able to do that. We've been pretty impressed with what we've seen so far. You seem pretty cool, calm and collected as well. So let's hope you continue to develop in that vein. And I think you've got the right manager to do it under.
I mean, of the players that are coming through at the moment, I read the article, and obviously he wants to sort of take the lead on any youngsters that would be coming into the first team now. So my hope would be that Will Smallbone has the same longevity.
Yeah.
Say as a James Ward-Prowse or somebody who's had some sort of legacy.
I think in fairness, Mark, as well, what is important to mention, obviously, at this moment in time, because it's not a situation we've had for a while, we obviously have a manager who's going to be in place for some time. And that's obviously not the sort of stability the academy players have had, is it? So I actually wouldn't be surprised to see the academy go from strength to strength, purely and simply based on the fact that we've got a manager who's going to be in situ for some time. So I think with a bit of stability does come a bit of continuity, doesn't there? And players, it gives him a good, decent amount of time to develop these youngsters, doesn't it? So if you can't develop youngsters in that amount of time, I think you'd struggle to do it, wouldn't you? So for me, it's one of those unique opportunities we've got now to actually develop the youngsters over a period of time, because we've not had that opportunity, have we? The last time we had that opportunity was back in the 80s under the likes of Menemy and Dave Merrington. So it'd be nice to see that kind of conveyor belt again in a way.
Yeah, and I think from my own point of view, you look at the deals that are being struck. So, any sort of promising player, they're trying to tie down on longer term contracts, and obviously, in the senior ranks, they're trying to keep hold, even in the short term, of the players that they'll need for the next, say, 1 or 2 seasons.
Absolutely.
But just going back to that, I mean, I think for me, it gives Will Smallbone certainly the platform to build some sort of legacy for himself at the football club, and hopefully he's the sort of mentality or sort of player that wants to stay in the much longer term. I think JWP and people like that.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope that he's got the same sort of mentality as JWP, because those are the sort of players we certainly want to nurture, don't we? And those are the players we want to be our club. We want players that want to play for the shirt. Yeah. Not just kiss the badge for the sake of it, but players that genuinely want to play for the club.
Yeah, no, definitely, 100%.
So, moving on to yet another bit of good news coming out of their club, and it's been full of good news since the pandemic started, Mark, isn't it? Franny and Kenzie Benali, both named Saints Foundation ambassadors, which is absolutely fantastic. Great news for the foundation and great news for them. Can't say I'm surprised. Franny's obviously got the club close to his heart, hasn't he? And Kenzie as well. So it's great to see both getting involved with that, I think. And Franny's obviously just recently raised £8,000 for the cause, hasn't he, back in April when he completed his garden marathon on his treadmill.
Yeah, so, no, he did. So it's fantastic news following on from his efforts on the treadmill during lockdown, and it's richly obviously you're offered these positions, and then I'm assuming they kind of look at it and they think to themselves, can we devote the time? But the thing is Franny's obviously now a club ambassador, and he's involved with the Saints Foundation. He's involved with our set. Mark C and I are members of the Saints Disabled Supporters Association, and he's also the ambassador for that.
That's right. So, it's important to mention as well that Kenzie, off her own back last year, actually attended our open day when Franny wasn't available, didn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
So, back, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so it was a lone star role, so it was for the open day,
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. There was actually a statement from Greg Baker from the Saints Foundation, head of Saints Foundation, who we both know, revealed his joy at having them both on board. Said, "We're delighted to bring them into our ambassador program. Throughout the years, they've been incredibly supportive of our work, helping out whenever they can. I'm excited to see what else they can offer going forward. They're joining our fantastic ambassador, James Ward-Prowse, and we know they can reach a different type of audience to spread our message further than ever before. We're planning to announce more ambassadors soon, and even though it's a difficult time for all of our new ambassadors on board, it's a really positive step for Saints Foundation's future. And yet again, you're just proud to be a Saints fan. Leading the way.
It is. It's a strange one because you sort of think to yourself, I don't want lockdown the end because it's actually showing the club in such a brilliant light, But it is great news, mate.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we'll keep the good news going. Danny Ings has come out and said that he wants to emulate fans' favourite Ricky Lambert. So he's hoping he can follow in Ricky Lambert's footsteps by becoming a fan's favourite at St Mary's. Well, I think you've probably already done that, Danny. You scored twice against Portsmouth. That pretty much gives you legend status straight away.
I think the thing. Even though I read the article and I sort of, I took on board what he was kind of saying, that he wants to reach, kind of, let's say, legend status, right? Or be up there. But the thing is I just feel that as long as he's here for, a certain duration of time, be it, I think really for me, I think you have to sort of spend at least 5 years at a club, 4 or 5 years at a club to have sort of any real affinity as well. But the thing is with him in his position, all I would say to you, Mark, is as long as he continues to score goals, he'll always have legend status. Well, I don't want to say that he has legend status now, but let's say if he continues in the same vein that he does this season for, say, the next 4 seasons, he'd be pretty close to it, considering his goal scoring exploits this season.
Well, let's not forget, you probably haven't quite hit your peak yet, Danny. So, you're only 27 still, so you're still fairly young. You've still got a few years ahead of you, thankfully. I mean, if you keep your fitness level up and keep performing like Mark says, keep banging them in, I don't think you'll have an issue reaching that level, to be fair. I think a lot of fans' eyes, you're probably part of the way there. You've proved that you play for the badge. You've proved the passion you have for the club. You are a Saints lad after all. And it's been demonstrated this season. As Mark says, continue doing what you're doing and you'll get there, no problem. Quite a lot of fans up to you already. You're getting fans week by week, to be fair. So, as I was saying, I think he's part of the way there, to be fair. He's scored some crucial goals so far. He's proved that his commitment to the club's there. He's proved that he plays for the badge. He plays with passion. And I think he leads by example on the pitch, doesn't he? Him and Ward-Prowse. So, he's a great guy. I think really down to earth guy as well. Friendly guy, nice guy. And I think he's doing well for the club, and long may it continue, Mark.
I mean, I can't, I echo those thoughts of what you've just said, basically, mate. And hopefully, if he continues the way he's going, I can't see any reason why he wouldn't reach the same kind of level as Ricky Lambert and be adored, loved, and respected by the fan base. So
let's also not forget he's still in with a shout at the Golden Boot this season, isn't he? He's only about 4 goals behind Vardy. So keep going, Danny. Who knows? You might even catch him. No pressure.
I mean, as I say, who knows? Who knows?
Well, in fairness,
as long as he's got his shooting boots on, who knows?
Well, in fairness to the club as well, he had a lot of doubters when he signed for us. A lot of people saying, he ain't going to justify the fee. He's never going to get his fitness level up. He's not going to score enough goals. 15 goals this season, people.
Yep.
Not bad for a sick-note player, apparently.
Oh, he's surprised. Although I had said to you that he worked, really hard in the summer, and he did, and obviously the fitness levels looked up early doors for me, but I never expected him to score the amount of goals he scored this season. I'm willing to raise my head above the parapet and say that I just did not expect. I thought that he would be ready for games, physically fit. But there's no way I was expecting him to score as many goals as what he scored this season. So, well done, Danny.
Yeah, I must admit, despite the fact that I've obviously seen how hard he worked on his fitness and I was confident he was going to score goals, I didn't think he was going to hit the heights he has. So it's great to see. Absolutely fantastic. Keep it up, Danny. And you're a true saint, which is great. So moving on, Ryan Bertrand, the Southampton fullback, has boardroom ambitions, Mark. He's obviously, he wants to play in football after his playing days are over, but he's not interested in coaching or a media career. He actually wants to go one step further than that. He actually wants to be a director of football. So he definitely wants to make the way for others, which is great to hear. He wants to kind of break through and change the role slightly and obviously make sure that there's more diversity within that role as well. Absolutely great to see. And it's nice to hear he's been working hard behind the scenes on his future outside of football, which is after playing for him.
I think I would, I'd be intrigued to see, if he was ever tempted to come on as the director of football here, because obviously it would change the role somewhat in the sense of I'd like to think that Ram would do it slightly different from a Les Reed, let's say.
Absolutely. The thing is with Ryan as well, I'm hoping he'll sign a new contract because I don't think he lacks any ambitions, but people sort of scratch their head and go, well, why is Ryan Bertrand still at Saints? Why isn't he left to win things? Well, I hate to remind you, everybody, Ryan Bertrand's already won the Champions League in his Chelsea days, and he's also already played for England. So in regards to his career, he's achieved a couple of things most players never will. So that's part of the reason he's still at Saints. And part of the reason he hasn't moved elsewhere, he has won stuff in his career. He's won the Champions League.
I think the thing is when I think as well, it's important to point out that when he joined Saints, it was a club. Ryan's career probably at that stage was going backwards. He had loan spells at Reading, loan spells at Aston Villa, and he came to Saints initially on loan. And we signed him in January. And, he was part of a side that was playing good attacking football, moving up the table. First season 7th, second season 6th. The following season, he got the Elite Cup final. So you could really argue that it's only sort of in the last 2 or 3 seasons, where, it's sort of, obviously the club's kind of, they've plateaued and they've gone backwards. Let's be honest about it. We went through stats last night, that showed that Koeman has won more games in his 2 seasons than we have won in the last four seasons at home.
Yeah.
At home. So no, I mean good luck to him, and as I say, it would be interesting that if he ever filled the role here, how he would go about doing it, because like I say, I dare say he would do it a lot differently from, say, Les Reed.
it actually says that he's been preparing himself for life after retirement from a young age. He had his eyes open to the world of business as a child. He used to accompany his mum to her work at Morgan Stanley in the city. He first started trading as a young player at Gillingham. Even as he built a playing career that's seen him win the FA Cup and Champions League with Chelsea, as well as 19 England caps, a number of off-field ventures, including his own tech startup and an emoji app, meaning we're well prepared when it comes to boardroom level operations. For him, director of football would be an ideal fit. It's a mix of business with sport, and they're both his passion, he says. Having the responsibility to say, yes, I chose these players, I chose them to perform well, and working with a manager and business owner to get the right consistency and footballing model that's successful on the field, I take a lot of pride in that. So it certainly sounds like he's got his head bolted on, and he always comes across as quite an intelligent lad, does Ryan.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I think more or less from whenever he started his football career, it was always about looking for, business opportunities and building up portfolios and stuff like that there, from what I understand. He's definitely one of the players that, if he left football tomorrow, he's got enough interests, business interests outside of football, so it's definitely one of those. And as I say, good luck to him in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll move on from Ryan Bertrand to a young lad just starting out in the game. Nathan Tella could be in line for a Premier League debut when Project Restart gets underway, with Ralph Hasenhüttl promoting him to his first team squad. With each and every top-flight team under pressure to cram the remaining 9 games of the season into the next few weeks, a whole host of talented youngsters will be chomping at the bit to make their mark, and he is just one of those that could possibly feature. I can't help thinking this is everyone jumping the gun a little bit. He's played in one friendly against Bristol City. That doesn't make a summer for me. He is an exciting winger, but he's due to become a free agent at the end of June, so I think it's either a case of they're either putting him in the shop window, or Ralphie's looking at him thinking, okay, maybe we've got to start looking at these youngsters and trying to bring them through now. Otherwise, what are we doing?
Well, my thoughts on it were just basically, Mark, and I'm only going to make a couple of comments on this. My thoughts were this: people got to remember that when the games restart again tonight, you've got 5. Saints will be able to use 5 substitutes, right. And I think from an attacking point of view, even if he doesn't make his debut starting, there may be a very, very strong possibility that during these next 9 games, because you've got the 5 substitute rule, right? From an attacking point of view, because it's obviously options that he looks at from the bench, in the sense that, I don't think there is a lot of attacking prowess on the bench, and we've kind of seen that over the season. Yeah. So obviously he's looking at other options in that area, and I do think that we will see Nathan Tella during these next 9 games. Like I say, he may not start games, and he probably won't start games. But I've got a funny feeling we might see him once or twice come off the bench.
Well, let's hope if he does feature, let's hope he makes an impact.
Yeah.
And let's hope it results in him extending his stay with us. We'll see what happens. Right, moving on to another youngster at Southampton at the moment, and there is a fear that this exciting teenager will leave in July. I know this is a player that Mark says is absolutely outstanding. I happen to agree with him. I think this guy would be a big loss if he did leave. And that is the fact that Southampton fear that Oladair Olafunwa could leave on a free at the start of July, having not yet signed a new 2-year deal he's been offered at St Mary's. Considering transfer market is to be quite unusual, Saints are initially focused on keeping their existing squad together, as you alluded to. Ralph Hasenhüttl signed a long-term contract recently, with obviously Shane Long and Will Smallbone following in his footsteps. There's still hope on the South Coast. Ryan Bertrand and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Oriol Romeo will all follow suit. We'll see what happens, I guess. But Olafunwa leaving could be a bit of a disappointment, Mark, couldn't it? And I can't help thinking, part of me thinks that obviously he's probably looking at who's ahead of him and thinking, well, if I can't get in the team ahead of these certain players, I'm probably not going to feature, so I need to go elsewhere, which is a little bit worrying.
The thing for me is that we covered this when the contract, the new contract was offered, and at that stage, I was fairly confident that he would sign it because, in terms of the thing is if he looks at the situation at the minute, there is a pathway there for him to get in, at least in the starting basis, to get into the squad. So, I don't know what the circumstances are, but what I would say to you, Mark, is it sounds to me like he's not overly impressed with the terms. I just hope that him and the club and his agent, whoever's responsible for him, can come to some sort of agreement before his contract runs out in July. I really do.
The worrying thing for me is I believe he's actually under the same agent that Jose Font used to have. I believe he's under Jonathan Barnett.
Yeah.
Which that worries me slightly. We've never had a necessarily positive relationship with Jonathan Barnett as an agent. So that worries me a little bit, I must admit.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I don't tend to look at things. I just tend to think to myself, I mean, Jose Font, don't forget, Jose Font, he was here for seven years, mate.
Yeah.
He was at the club for 7 years. And the only reason why his relationship with Southampton broke down was over a contract. You know what I mean? Yeah. But look, going back to this young lad, I just think that in terms of his pathway, he's a centre back and a right. He can play right back and centre back, right? Both positions are really, really needed at the club at the minute. So that there's a very unless we all of a sudden start signing right backs and centre backs in the summer, left, right, and centre, and you need to be signing 2 in each position, right?
Right.
There's still a pathway there for him to get. Like I said to you, he might not get into the first team, but there's certainly an opportunity there for him to get into the squad and get onto the bench. I just think he's one of the more exciting prospects at the club, and we should be trying to do our utmost to keep him. So hopefully, that can get sorted.
Absolutely. Right, that brings us to the end of the first section of today's show. So we're just going to go for a break. And when we come back, we'll be covering other football news.
The Toussaint Show here on Fiesta FM. Tune in every Thursday, 12 till 2 for informative football chat and great tunes. It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Toussaint Show.
Right, everybody, welcome back. So moving on, other football news. Keith Hill, Bolton Wanderers boss, is to leave after relegation from League One. League One playoffs, Wembley to stage final on 13th of July as dates confirmed. I miss football a tremendous amount. This is a report revolving around disabled fans and missing football. Della and Michael will watch City games at home to show solidarity with supporters. That is the two major stakeholders for Norwich City, Delia Smith and Michael Wyn Jones. Scottish Championship clubs approved 27 game season starting in October. Food voucher U-turn after Marcus Rashford's campaign. Champions League and Europa League. UEFA discuss plans to finish the season. Premier League restart. Talks have started about fans returning to top flight stadiums. That will bring us to the end of that section. So, beginning at the top, Mark, regards to Keith Hill at Bolton Wanderers and the fact he's actually going to leave after relegation from League One. The club are basically stating that they feel it's in the best interest to have a fresh approach to management and coaching structure for next season and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, though, for me, it's a bit of a strange one because Keith Hill's actually from Bolton himself. And the thing I would say, Mark, is while he has relevant experience in League One, which obviously was the league they were playing in last season, last season. But what I would say is, I think it might be a bit of a mistake to get rid of him now because the thing is he has multiple promotions from League Two under his belt when he was Rochdale manager. I think one of the things that obviously when he was at Rochdale he struggled. to progress them further than League One, because obviously the budget wasn't necessarily there.
Yeah.
So that under him, they tended to yo-yo, they tended to get promotion. Get promotion to League One wasn't a problem, but actually staying in the division for Rochdale was a bit of a problem. So
Yeah.
All I would say is they might have shot themselves in the foot, because obviously Bolton are getting rid of a manager who has a proven track record of getting teams out of League Two. So
Yeah.
I just think it's watch this space. And of course, his assistant went as well, David Flitcroft. And I think the other thing that's important to say is, like, obviously they've been taken over where it looked like they were going to sort of go out of business last summer. And really at the end of the day, they've had a big turnover of players as a result. They've brought players in on short-term contracts and things like that there. And, obviously, I would have thought the owners and certainly the supporters, that this will be a period of time where they're looking for a bit of stability, and they'll be looking to try and get, that we're talking about an ex-Premier League side here, or an ex-Premier League club, I should say, not side, an ex-Premier League club. So, I would have thought whoever goes in there, even next season, they'll be looking to bounce back as quickly as possible, and make sure that they're at least in the running for to get promoted next season.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's sad to see where they are at the moment, and let's hope they sort of come back from where they are. Not sure they'll ever emulate the former glory they had, but some way towards that would be good for the fans, wouldn't it? It's always disappointing when your team's suffering. We know that. We've been through it ourselves.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
100%.
Moving on to the next story. League One playoffs. Wembley are to stage the final on the 13th of July as dates are confirmed. So Wembley Stadium will host the League One final on Monday, 13th of July, after dates are confirmed for the division's playoff fixtures. The final will follow 2 weeks after League Two's promotion showpiece at the National Stadium on 29th of June, with championship dates yet to be confirmed. The two-leg semi-finals will have staggered kickoffs on the same dates, Friday the 3rd of July and Monday 6th of July. Portsmouth host Oxford in the first leg, while Fleetwood welcome Wickham.
Yeah,
players in all three divisions will wear shirts with an NHS rainbow thank you emblem on their end for the remainder of the season as well.
That's a nice touch. I like the sound of that, even though I haven't seen it. But what I would say there, Mark, is at least they get a bit of breathing space, a bit of time for recuperation, unlike our friends in League Two, whose playoffs start tomorrow night. Right? And as I said in the podcast previously, or said in the podcast and show previously, that starts tomorrow night on Thursday. They play again on Monday night, and then the final is on Saturday, which I absolutely think, in terms of the time scale, absolutely ridiculous. So at least our counterparts in League One are getting the breathing space, because it certainly looks like there's a bit of a fortnight gap between at least the two-leg semi-finals finishing and the final happening at Wembley.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So moving on, this was a study that was obviously done. It involved Level Playing Field. They were involved in this, and obviously there were interviews that happened with a couple of disabled fans, one from Liverpool and one from Middlesbrough, and they were asked about the impact that the absence of live sport had on their mental health, Mark, weren't they? And they were asked about obviously how they felt about not being able to attend football.
Yeah.
I read
in the report that over 45% of disabled supporters had obviously struggled during lockdown, that there was no football, and as a consequence of, actually, because both Mark and I have viewed the video, as I've said on air before, both Mark and I have disability, and just speaking from my own experience here, I was dead set against Project Restart from the get-go. And that hadn't really changed until I watched and read this report. And I've got to say, after seeing that, my attitude has mellowed a bit, because I know I probably don't have, the same sort of issues as some of the people that were interviewed.
Yeah.
For the survey, right? I do understand that, lockdown for a lot of disabled people, where we were isolated before, you're even more isolated now, because, going to football may be your only outlet during the week, and the only time that you get to mix and mingle with other people, and obviously supporters of the club that you're passionate about. So I totally get that. So after seeing this, my attitude has completely changed in relation to, Project Restart, or whatever you want to call it. My whole thing has sort of changed a lot. I still sort of think to myself, there's something not quite right about, starting up sport, or starting up certainly football while all this is still going on. But after watching the videos from, these disabled people, I just sort of thought to myself, actually, there is a need for, live sport, live football to be out there, because at the end of the day, I mean, I don't want to hedge my bets too much, and I don't want to say that everything's perfectly safe, but certainly in the Premier League, right? It's a different picture lower down the other leagues, but certainly in the Premier League, the players are, and we've seen it, well looked after. So, all I would say is yeah, no, it was heart-rendering, mate, because I do understand some of the stuff that they were talking about,
Yeah, it was interesting as well. 43% of disabled fans say the absence of live sport during the coronavirus pandemic has had a significant impact on their mental health, according to a new study. In addition, 62% said it would have a considerable effect on their well-being if they're unable to watch live sport next season. This is obviously responding to a study carried out by Disability Inclusion and Equality charity Level Playing Field. Points to a lack of social interaction and distraction sport provides. 50% of those asked said they had concerns about returning to watch live sport in stadia, including safety worries and concerns about communication difficulties. 12% said the pandemic had put them off from attending live sport ever again. Of 570 people surveyed, 79% are in the high-risk category for coronavirus, and the study actually found 81% of fans intend to or have already renewed their season ticket. 86% expect clubs to provide live streaming if matches continue to be played behind closed doors. And 75% of fans would want to see hand sanitising stations installed in order for them to feel comfortable returning. A survey results from nearly 600 fans have endorsed what Level Playing Field already knew, how important attending live sport is for so many disabled people, but even we're by the extent of the fear and anxiety expressed by some of those responders. Level Playing Field will ensure this is shared widely with clubs and governing bodies, which is great. And they're confident at Level Playing Field that the data will be effective in helping support people in decision making and planning as sport begins to resume. So some interesting stats there. Fantastic stuff from Level Playing Field again. Something we know something about Level Playing Field, obviously, in the great work they do. It's great to hear that. But as you say, the human interest part of that, the massive impact that this has had on disabled fans, absolutely huge. They want a chance to socialise, meet with friends, meet with people who share a similar passion. And it is literally, when most people go to the stadium for football, it is a level playing field, isn't it? And probably the most level you get as a disabled person. So I totally get where they were coming from. And as you said, heart-wrenching, definitely. And something we can both obviously relate to. You can obviously relate slightly better, Mark, because you've obviously been shielded and I haven't. So we've both seen it from a slightly different perspective, which is good. So yeah, you can certainly empathise with people as to what they're going through. I can obviously to a lesser degree, but think we're both in agreement as to the impact it's had. Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Right, moving on. Delia Smith and Michael Wynne-Jones have decided to, like the fans, watch the remaining Norwich City games from home. They have obviously been offered the opportunity to watch them home and away, and have declined to do so. And they've actually made the decision they won't actually be watching any matches in the stadium until the fans are able to do so. So, definite display of solidarity there from both of them.
Yeah, I mean, all I wanted to say, and you know, I just thought I would cover this obviously because it does show that, you know, there are some directors and some sure people out there that, you know, obviously, you know, the connection with the fans. But Mark, all I will say to that story is, let's not be having you. Let's not be having you. You know. And, anyway, apart from that, you know, I mean, I quite admire the fact that they've took the stance, because this, you know, it would sound that there's, from what I understand, there's around 10 tickets available for directors and whatever else, you know, to go watch the games and stuff like that there. And while I understand that they run the football clubs and everything else, I just sort of sit there and I think to myself, well, why should you be any different from the supporters? You know, why should they be any different from us? You know what I mean? I mean, our acting chairman's Martin Simmons, but he doesn't actually put, you know, his money into the football club. So why should he be sat in the stands watching them?
Yep, absolutely right. Yep, couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
You know, he gets paid by the club to do a job.
That's right.
You know, so anyway, moving on.
Yeah, our next story, Scottish Championship clubs have voted overwhelmingly to play a 27-match season, 9 fewer games than normal, for beginning in October. It's been confirmed Hearts and Inverness Caledonian Thistle will feature in the division after a proposal for an expanded Premiership failed to gain enough support. The league announced that 10 second-tier clubs approved a shortened season, which will start behind closed doors. Provisional start of 17th of October has been set for the 2020-21 campaign. Hearts will mount a legal challenge against their demotion after finishing bottom of the top flight when last season was curtailed, while Raith Rovers were declared League One winners and joined the second tier. However, Partick Thistle have been relegated to League One, and Falkirk denied promotion from the division after the reconstruction plans faltered. And currently, only Premiership clubs are currently allowed to train before the division's August the 1st start.
Yeah, because as I understand it, and forgive me if I've got it the wrong way around, but as I understand it, Mark, Hearts, you know, obviously they've been relegated and they've got a lot to lose, you know, from being demoted from the Scottish Premier League. But they had put forward a proposal, which was backed by a number of clubs, about the restructuring, which would have basically meant that they wouldn't have got demoted from the Premier League, and that was rejected a few days ago. You know, it would have meant an increase in the number of teams in, you know, certainly in the top flight division in Scotland. But that was rejected. So now Anne Budgeon, I believe, is the name of the chair lady at Hearts, and they have now decided that they are going to take legal action against, you know, against this, whether it's the Scottish FA or the Scottish Premier League, I'm not sure, but they're taking legal action now. So, as I say, but it's good news that, you know, the fans north of the border, obviously in the Championship, have been given this date as, you know, as their start date for next season, and you know, let's hope that they are able to start in October.
Definitely. Yeah, moving on from there, we've had a announcement obviously made that there's been a U-turn on the government's food vouchers campaign. This is school meal vouchers for children at school at the moment. Marcus Rashford's been campaigning for this to be U-turn. The government decided they weren't going to issue any more vouchers, didn't they, over the course of the summer. This decision has now been reversed due to the fact that Marcus Rashford has obviously been doing this campaign. It basically means that 1.3 million children in England will be able to claim free school meal vouchers in the summer holidays following the campaign by footballer Marcus Rashford. The 22-year-old welcomed the 6-week voucher for eligible children, saying, "Look at what we can do when we come together." Labour leader Keir Starmer said the move was a welcome U-turn, and Prime Minister praised Mr Rashford's contribution to the debate around poverty. He also contacted him via the phone as well to speak to him. And he basically said, I talked to him today and congratulated him on his campaign, which, to be honest, I only became aware of very recently, and I thank him for what he's done. So it's nice to see the government have listened, but fair play to Marcus Rashford. He's done an awful lot during the lockdown, hasn't he, Mark, to make sure things are better for kids and everyone. So fair play to him. He's worked very hard and he's reaped the rewards for that.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say, Mark, is he was doing a lot before. I mean, I've got you to cover him before on the show, right? And what I would say is the school meals thing has always been something that's been fairly dear to his heart, right? He set this up a few years ago, and obviously it expanded during the lockdown, but this is something that he's actually set up a few years back, because Marcus himself, he was brought up by a single parent, or the family was brought up by a single parent, and like he said, the free school meals whenever he was a kid was very, very important, nutrition and everything else. So it was important, that even if they went back into the house and it wasn't necessarily a balanced meal, he was getting a balanced meal at school, and as I say, I think he's had his own sort of charity, if you like, set up, I think, for the last year, 2 years, in the Manchester area. And then when lockdown happened, they actually expanded it, so they covered a greater area. So I think we're covering, rather than just covering Manchester, he was covering Greater Manchester as well. And it's something that's been very dear to his heart. I mean, he's involved in loads of other charity stuff, and this is one lad. You look at the age of him, and I sort of sit there and I think to myself, actually, if you do want football role models, he's not a bad one. He's not a bad one for the younger generation to look at, But as I say, it's fantastic that there has been the U-turn on this for at least over the summer. But I don't think it would have happened if it hadn't been for a lot of the campaigning that he was doing on the subject.
The worry is as well the fact that it was going to be the poorest hit families, the worst hit families, the poorest families were going to be the ones that were going to suffer. So it is great to see that, because it does mean it just makes it a little bit better for them. We can't wave a magic wand and solve every problem they have, but this will certainly make a big difference to those that are struggling, definitely. It's just another bit of good news coming out under lockdown regards to sport and what sportsmen and women have been able to do. So that's great. Yeah, fair play. 22 years old as well. Fair play to him.
By the way, you put that very well there. I've got to say that you just put that very well. It is true. But the thing is it's a bit of bright news in what will be difficult circumstances for us all.
And it's ironic as well that it's the youngsters in this country leading the way, Mark.
Yeah.
That's good to see.
They get a lot of flack at the same time, but then, you look at things like this here and you just think to yourself, well,
Yeah, absolutely. Right, moving on to our next story. Champions League and Europa League. UEFA are discussing plans to finish the season. The plans to finish this season's Champions League and Europa League will be discussed at a meeting of UEFA's Executive Committee due to happen on Wednesday. It's expected Portugal and Germany will be confirmed as hosts for a Final 8 knockout tournament in their respective competitions. The Women's Champions League set to take place in Spain. There's been disagreement about how the outstanding last 16 ties in the men's competitions will be resolved. Possible some teams may have to give up home advantage in the Champions League and Europa League second leg ties. That could affect games where there was a narrow first leg result, such as Man City beating Real Madrid at the Bernabeu 2-1. in the first leg of their Champions League tie, and Wolves, who drew 1-1 at Olympiacos in the Europa League. So there are 4 Champions League last 16 matches still to be completed and 6 Europa League ties. It's expected the 2 Europa League ties that are yet to start will be played as one-off games in Germany. Obviously, most clubs want to preserve home advantage to second legs, but UEFA is concerned this could actually increase the risk of games being postponed because of the virus.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say on that report is Mark, it's obvious that, you know, what by the sounds of it, in terms of the shape of how both tournaments or both competitions are going to end, it's obvious that you know they've made the decision, and it makes a lot of sense actually that the countries or the hosts that they've picked, because obviously Germany has been right on top of the coronavirus from the get-go. You know, they had track and trace out straight away. They had, you know, if you wanted to be tested for coronavirus, that was happening, you know, as a German citizen. So obviously picking that country makes a lot of sense, you know, to finish a competition for UEFA.
Yep.
And in the same way, you know, Portugal have had, you know, not a great number of coronavirus cases and all the rest of it. So that makes sense as well. So the idea obviously then is to get the last 16 teams together, have kind of a mini tournament, you know, and resolve it that way. And I think, you know, personally to me, when you look at the, as I say, when you look at the countries they've chosen and how they're talking about actually concluding, you know, both the Champions League and Europa League, you know, it makes a lot of sense, and hopefully, you know, they'll be able to get that done.
Yeah, definitely. Right, I think we'll move on to Premier League restart. Talks have started about fans returning to top flight stadiums, Mark. Discussions have started about fans attending Premier League matches again, says Chief Executive Richard Masters. The English top flight restarts on Wednesday after a 100-day break because of the coronavirus pandemic, with fixtures behind closed doors. He did not put a time frame on a return of fans to stadiums, but said talks have begun with the government. The Premier League's back, but it won't be fully back until we get those fans back inside the stadium, he said. We're very keen to see fans back in the stadium at the earliest possible juncture when it's safe and appropriate to do so. Well, that's some way off, I would say then. I can't believe these discussions are even happening, Mark. For me, it's way, way, way too soon to even have these discussions. Absolutely ridiculous. It's a big moment because it's unprecedented. It is, but it'd be an even bigger moment if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Way too early, in my opinion. It shouldn't even be contemplating it. It shouldn't even be having these discussions. These discussions should be happening at the end of the season, not now. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Stupidity, in my opinion. Absolute stupidity.
I probably concur, Mark, but then when I actually read it and I thought about it, right, you know, is it not that these discussions are happening early so that people can prepare? You know, nobody, you know, when you actually read the article, I mean, it's not like anybody's actually given any kind of dates here. All they're doing is they're looking at things that can be reasonably done so that, you know, fans return to the stadium. I'll put my neck above the parapet and basically say that as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we'll see anybody returning to a stadium before next year. You know, maybe, you know, I keep thinking that maybe, you know, with football's busiest period being, you know, the Christmas period, you know, Christmas, New Year, right? I kind of think clubs may want to see fans returning around about that time, because obviously there's a lot of football being played, you know, and all the rest of it, and it might give people a bit of a lift, you know, at that time of year even. So you know, I would say at the earliest you're probably looking about December, January time, and even then it will be for a small proportion of supporters. You know, it won't be everybody.
For me personally, realistically, I believe it's going to be March next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I wouldn't disagree with that, mate. You know, but I think the thing is like, you know, and I understand where you're coming from, but it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's exploratory talks, and I suppose it's talks about, you know, what feasibly can be done for the return. You know, I don't think anybody's saying, you know, oh, they're going to return in September when the new season starts. I don't think anybody's saying that, Mark. You know, I don't think anybody's saying that. All they're saying is it's
controversial as it sounds. If they were doing that now, it'd be stupid.
No, well, exactly. But then it's all about having exploratory talks about what can be done so that, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, and I know sometimes we don't like these words being used, right? But football is a business, and at some stage, you know, the clubs will want to see the fans return to the stadium at the earliest but safest, you know, point. And I think at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with them having exploratory talks, you know, as long as, you know, when a date's announced, and I still think that's a long way off, because, you know, you've got to look at certain safeguards. You've got to make sure that there's all different kinds of things put in place, and to me, this is why they're having those kind of talks at the moment. It's just to be prepared, mate. That's all it is. You know, it's just to be prepared and to make sure that.
I may have possibly misread that. I may have possibly misinterpreted that, because for me, as I say, if it was to be immediately, yeah, okay, we're going to look at this, we're going to do it, stupid. If they're not, fair enough, you know,
Don't get me wrong in what I'm saying, Mark, right? If that article had said fans are returning in October, I would have said absolute madness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Anyway, that brings us to the end of that section of the show today. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll be discussing Saints transfer news.
It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Two Saints Show. The Two Saints Show here on Fiesta FM. Tune in every Thursday, 12 till 2 for informative football chat and great tunes.
Right, everybody, welcome back. So, moving on, Mark, we've got the Saints transfer news coming up now. Southampton could sell key player to Premier League rivals for just £10 million. Leicester make decision on Southampton's Vestergaard after failed £26 million move. Southampton in pursuit of in-demand player. Daily Mail, Arsenal and Chelsea both linked with out of favour Southampton goalkeeper Fraser Forster. Southampton in talks to sign 21-year-old after hijacking his European deal. Hijacking a deal? Anyway, sounds a bit controversial. Right, back to the top. Saints could sell a key player to Premier League rivals for just £10 million. The key player in question is Ryan Bertrand, who we believed is a summer transfer target for Leicester City. He's got 12 months left on his contract at St Mary's, according to the Mirror. Considering there's a paucity of genuinely top-class left-backs available for hire at present, the Foxes might be smelling a bargain. Yeah, and with any luck, we'll be able to re-sign him to Saints for a couple of years and tell Leicester to do one.
It's
10 million quid.
It's an interesting one, because obviously the week before, which we covered on the show last week, you know, Southampton were due to, you know, start up talks with them on Romeu, you know, and now you read this and you sort of sit there and you think to yourself, you know, are they doing it because obviously they, you know, were aware of interest from other clubs, given that his contract's due to run out next season?
Yeah, my question always is, are these clubs genuinely interested, or is it the player's agent talking up a storm to try and get his player the best deal he can get him with his current club?
You know, it's probably a bit of both, to be honest with you, Mark. It's probably a bit of brinksmanship in the sense of if if Ryan has sort of entered talks with Saints in relation to a new contract, and then a story breaks like this, and it's kind of like the pressure, the pressure's on to sort of secure the best deal the club can, and obviously the best deal that the agent and the player can for them, for themselves. So, and then, there's added pressure because obviously the media all of a sudden, come up with a story, which, like you said, can be fed by agents a lot of the time, and, or just even making people aware that people are available, But yeah, I mean, the thing is I think with somebody like Ryan Bertram and his experience, there's always that danger that if you don't sort of if you don't tam down, and I think, we're vulnerable in that situation in the sense that do you want to be recruiting a right back and a left back in the summer? And bearing in mind, I was saying this to friends before, bearing in mind, when it comes to fullbacks, Saints don't really splash the cash, because fullbacks aren't looked at as, they're an important part of the team these days. But in terms of, splashing the cash, all sides tend to splash the cash more when it comes to centre backs or central midfielders or forwards. I think when it comes to fullbacks, you tend to spend the least money. Certainly in Saints' recent history, they spend the least money on fullbacks. So, I think that the club will be keen to tam down irrespective of any late interest from any other football club.
Yeah, the thing is, you look at Saints, you look at the players they've signed defensively, and defensive signings, every single defender they've signed has cost them less than what they paid for Danny Ings.
Yeah, exactly. You see, exactly.
Each separate signing has cost them less than it did to sign Danny Ings. So Danny Ings was signed for 20 million. Even Virgil van Dijk cost them less than 20 million quid.
Yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't draw that as a comparison. I'm talking more about the amount of money that's spent on fullbacks. If you looked at Saints' recent purchase history, Cedric, for example, right? I mean, he was bought relatively cheaply. We only paid something like 3 million quid for him.
Yeah.
But as I say, hopefully it doesn't kind of come to that, because I think in the short term he's still kind of needed here. And if they can agree a deal with him, although the contract finishes in the next season, if they can agree a deal with him, hopefully that'll happen. But obviously if it doesn't, and Leicester are willing to pay the 10 million quid, then there's enough money there for hopefully to be able to buy a relatively, good fullback, left back, and then have a bit of chunk change left over.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to the next story. Leicester make a decision on Southampton's Yannick Vestergaard after a failed £26 million move. The Foxes went close to signing Vestergaard for £26 million in January and remain keen on the Danish defender. Leicester are interested in signing him, but for less than £26 million they were prepared to pay in January. There's a shocker. Leicester came close to landing him during the last transfer window, only for Southampton coach Ralph Hasenhüttl to block the move late on. Brendan Rodgers is still keen on adding him to his squad, and the defender is on his hit list of centre-half targets. Leicester are not willing to offer as much this time because Vestergaard's made just one Premier League start since January and has entered the final 2 years of his contract. The financial impact of the virus will also have an effect on transfer values this summer. It's understood Vestergaard would still be keen on a move to Leicester and wants to play regularly again in the Premier League. He was a main defence, starting 11 of the first 12 before being dropped when their form collapsed in the autumn. Well, that's because his form collapsed as well.
And anyway, just covering the article for me, what I would say is he has kind of come to the fore, because it does look like Brendan's looking to recruit a tall kind of centre back, and obviously was looking in the January. I've stated already on the show that I don't believe that they were after a they were after Vestergaard permanently in the January. I think they wanted him in on loan. I think that if they could do a deal permanently this summer for him, then they would do. But like the article suggests, there's no way they're going to pay £26 million for him. And it would depend on, obviously Saints being able to agree a fee with Leicester, for Leicester to be able to take him. The reason why I know that Leicester were interested in sort of recruiting a commanding centre back as well was that apparently they had, even in this time, they had changed their attention to a guy called Christoph Jager, and he plays for Celtic. He's a Norwegian player who plays for Celtic at the back, and he is, again, he's around the same stature, height-wise, as Vestergaard. And the thing is, obviously, with him playing for Celtic, it's one that Brendan Rodgers had recruited for Celtic, so he knows the player. But apparently, according to the reports that I've seen, Celtic were looking too much money for him. Hence, now they've changed back their attentions to Vestergaard. But the thing is realistically, I think Leicester, if they were looking to sign him, you're probably looking at anywhere between 10 to 15 million quid. I'd be very surprised if we got the £18 million we paid for him, because his form doesn't dictate that his transfer value has gone up. His form would dictate that his transfer value's gone down.
I would have said so. You certainly would think so. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what happens with that one anyway, and if anything does happen on that front, and whether or not he does actually move, Mark. But moving on. Premier League side Southampton are reportedly still in the race with Arsenal to sign Stade de Reims central defender Axel Disasi. La Union recently talked about Saints' interest in Disasi, and they report that Reims want a fee of £13.4 million to part ways with the Frenchman, and claim Wolves have offered that amount to League One side. They don't report if that offer has been accepted or rejected, but they do state that Saints and Arsenal are still in the race for the 22-year-old defender.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say is, on the face of it, he looks like he would be a good acquisition for the club, Mark, right? On the face of it. But I think, and I'm only going by reports that we're going to come on to in about 2 articles' time, right? But, I think that if, in terms of targets, right, he might be, second reserve, because we're gonna come on to someone else that I think probably fits the bill for Saints a lot better. But certainly, again, this lad is someone who fits the bill in terms of Saints are in the market for a commanding centre half. Fits the bill in terms of the type of player that Saints would go for, under 24. But as I say, I think he's the kind of second reserve on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, moving on to our next topic. Chelsea and Arsenal are both in the hunt for out-of-favour Southampton goalkeeper Fraser Forster. The 32-year-old's been on loan at Celtic this season, and the Scottish club are also interested in signing him permanently. However, the Premiership champions could face some competition from London, as Chelsea are assessing the keeper amid doubts over his future at St Mary's Stadium, according to Football Insider. Right, over to Mark on this one and get his thoughts on what he makes of the situation with Fraser Forster. Over to you, Mark.
Like I said previously, on a previous podcast, I mean, our previous show as well, but my feelings on Fraser initially was, let's get him out the door, let's lower the price, and let's do a package with Celtic for him and El Zanussi for £10 million, the two of them for £10 million, and let's take, Olivier Nicham from Celtic in exchange for those two. But
Absolutely.
the realistic thing is right. It's been good for Fraser's career in that he's been able to play first team football this season. But the reality is how would you get Celtic and Fraser to agree a contract where he is on even comparable wages to what he's on Saints? Because the thing is Celtic are not going to offer him probably even 50 grand a week. They're not even going to probably offer him 40 grand a week. So the thing is it not better for everyone concerned that, Arsenal and Chelsea aren't? I'm just thinking about from a wages point of view, because I tell you something, even though he's been able to get his career back on track with first team appearances for Celtic, which is obviously why he went there in the first place, But the simple fact of the matter is, Mark, with these two emerging now, right, the Celtic move goes out the window for me, because a player is not going to sign for a club. It doesn't matter if you're the number one, right, because he would be the number one at Celtic. That doesn't matter, right? If you're offering less wages, right, than an Arsenal or a Chelsea, unfortunately, you're going to go there. And the thing is it's probably the best solution as well for Southampton Football Club, because you're getting rid of, one player for the amount of money that you want, plus you get all that wages and less of the aggro off the wage bill. So hopefully that move happens, and as a secondary move, if Arsenal and Chelsea don't materialise,
for me, it depends on how important Celtic is to Fraser Forster, because does Fraser prefer to remain in the Premier League, or would he prefer to be staying at Celtic?
Yeah, I mean, I think
he's gone there on loan and they've won the league, so
But I think from his the problem is once you start earning mega money, right? And to me, 70 grand a week for a club like ourselves, that's mega money. For a goalkeeper, that's mega money. So he's not going to want to reduce the wages that he's on. This is what the problem is, right? So even though he's got all that exposure, he plays in the first team for Celtic, right? I don't believe that Fraser Forster would be prepared to sacrifice half his wages, because that's what we're kind of talking about. Take a 50% cut in his wages. I think he would sooner keep the wages that he's on and move to Chelsea or Arsenal, even though I probably think at this time in his career it's important for him to be playing first team football, so it would be more advantageous for him to be at Celtic. But I think if Chelsea or Arsenal come knocking, I hate to be cynical, but you look at the bank account and you think to yourself, well, I'm going to be earning comparatively the same wage as I was at Southampton. Where do you sign?
Yep. Yep. Well, we'll move on to the next transfer story we've got. Saints look to hijack Rennes deal for Mohamed Salisu. Saints are in talks over a possible deal to sign Real Valladolid defender Mohamed Salisu after the player reportedly backed away from agreeing a deal with Rennes to speak with Southampton. According to a report from SER Deportivos in Spain, Salisu's broken away from talks with the League One side at the last minute to negotiate with Southampton, although it remains to be seen what the terms of any deal with the Premier League club would be. Ghanaian is set to be out of contract in 2022. It looks like Valladolid have decided to sell him this summer while his value is at its highest. With Yannick Vestergaard being linked with a move away from St Mary's, it makes sense Saints would be interested in a new defender, so it's no surprise to see them renew their interest in him. He was obviously linked with a move to Saints in January, but Valladolid were unwilling to let him leave. So, interesting one. It looks like we've actually hijacked someone else's transfer bid, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Saints, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, again, this was one that we covered last week with his impending move to Reims, and it looked like, nobody was gonna sort of step in there at any stage. As I said earlier, this looks like this is the number one preferred choice for centre back this summer. And what an imposing, powerful, centre half he looks, to be fair. And obviously it's something that we desperately require. Whether he works out or not, only the future can tell. But obviously, if we recruit him, it would be great news. I think it's definitely a case of watching this space, because it would sound like there's been an agreement in place, but obviously he wants to talk to other clubs. And I would say clubs because I get the feeling that even though he's in talks with us, I think there's one or two other clubs that are also interested. And it's the classic sort of situation where a player who's had a good season, and is the relative young age of 21, he's now in a position where he can look around, see what options are available to him, and make his choice accordingly. I mean, I would hope that we would be in a good position to sign someone like this, because obviously it's the ideal kind of signing in terms of, dare I use these words, stepping stone, but a chance for him to make a name for himself and maybe move on to bigger or better things. Or hopefully, us as fans would hope that if he does well, he wants to stay with the football club even better.
Well, it'd be nice if we could sit here at the end of the transfer window and go, oh, look, we've signed Axel Disasi and we've signed Mohamed Salazou as well.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I think, from my own point of view, I'd be very happy if we got a right back in, two centre backs and two central midfielders, and then I would probably go into next season with loads of confidence, because I've said to you before, people might think, oh, two central midfielders. Yes, two central midfielders, because we're going to lose Højbjerg, we're going to lose Lemina, I believe, this summer. And I think those two need to be replaced. But obviously, we've talked about this in the sense that, we only have three really senior centre halves now. Now that we've seen Yoshida leave, there's all the sort of doubts over Danzo, and it does look like he's going to be leaving in the summer. So you're left with three senior players, and especially if Vestergaard goes. If Vestergaard goes, mate, there's definitely a need for the BB band two centre halves, not just the one. Because I just think if you go into a season where you've only got three centre halves, I just think you've left yourself a player short there in that position. You should have defensively as a squad, you should have four centre backs.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I think that sums it up quite nicely. That also brings to an end our transfer news section of the show today. So we're going to take the last break of the show today. When we come back from that, we'll be giving you our preview of Saints versus Norwich and Saints versus Arsenal.
The Toussaint Show here on Fiesta FM. Tune in every Thursday 12 till 2 for informative football chat and great tunes. It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Toussaint Show.
Right, welcome back everybody. So now our preview of Norwich versus Saints, the two Saints preview.
Yes. Okay. So basically for me, Daniel Farke, since he's come in, done a great job. Norwich were struggling near the foot of the championship, and in one season he turned it round to get promoted, to come into the Premier League. They're probably, the one team in the Premier League that do have limited resources, in terms of bringing people in and being able to spend any sort of serious money. So obviously he's had to work with a fairly tight budget. I would still say that he's done reasonably well, given the constraints that he's working under. I think the thing for me with them, and I know we've spoken about it, is that their home form is considerably better than their away form. Their away form is an absolute disaster. I mean, they came to us when I suppose the pressure was on us. I mean, if you remember rightly, we had 2 home games on the spin.
Yeah.
Really, to give us any sort of platform, we needed to win both. We had a game against them at home and a game against Watford at home.
Yeah.
And the Norwich game, apart from 1 or 2 scores, it more or less went the script, and we managed to win it. And I would say, you compare that to the game against Watford, as I say, that were both win-win. The performance was against Norwich, which was much more convincing than the performance we had against Watford. Because if I remember rightly, against Watford, we were still losing 1-0 with 18 minutes to go. And I think that was one of the games where Sofiane Boufal came on and turned the game on, in the last 18 minutes, turned the game on its head. But going back to Norwich, I mean, I would have said that they were definitely, before kind of lockdown, they were the poorest side that I've seen at St Mary's this season.
Yeah, Saints were actually 2-0 up just before half-time. Danny Ings scored on 22 minutes, Bertrand on 43 minutes. Saints obviously won the game 2-1 eventually. But interestingly, Saints fans, and this will fill you with a bit of warmth. I was dreading it when I saw who the ref was, but interestingly enough, our last game against Norwich, our game against Norwich at St Mary's when we beat them 2-1, the referee was none other than Kevin Friend, who happens to be the referee for Saints' game against Norwich this time round. So despite the fact we've been in lockdown for so long and the Premier League's been off for so long, we've still managed to end up with Kevin Friend refereeing Saints v Norwich. Now, what's the odds of that, Mark?
It's been that long since there's been any football. Obviously, the Premier League's forgotten that he refereed the home game. So now he's getting the privilege of doing the double header, isn't it? But all I would say is there's a degree of caution for me with this game, mate. I've got to say a degree of caution because, as I say, their away form isn't great. The home form is much better. And given, they played on a Friday night against Leicester just before the lockdown, and they won 1-0. And really, they should have won it by more. I mean, they were by far the better team. And given the sort of season that Leicester's had, I do think that there is an air of caution there. Because I have to say, our record at Carrow Road isn't great. Historically, if you look at our record at Carrow Road, it isn't great. I mean, I think I've only ever seen us win once or twice. And the one that I do remember was the season that we ended up in the Championship playoffs. We won there 1-0. It was funnily enough, it was when Alan Ball had died that week. And we went up there that weekend and we had the minute's silence or the minute's applause, whatever it was, and we won with a goal from Kenwyne Jones. And I think I've seen us win on another occasion there, but it's not sort of coming to mind at the moment. But I've been to Norwich loads of times, and as I say, we don't have a great record there. But having said all that, I'll say this to you, Mark, right, is in the Bundesliga, right, there's been more away wins than there has been home wins. They're putting that down to the supporters not being in the stadium. And like you said last week, you know, when it comes to the home games, and I know we're going to come on the Arsenal game in a minute, but when it comes to the home games, you know, the Saints players were complaining, you know, that, you know, the fans were getting on their backs early season, especially at home. And like you said, you know, hopefully if there's no supporters in the stadium, then there's no, because they can't say there's any pressure on them. It'd be like, you know, it is going to be like a training game. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said last week, I've watched some of the Bundesliga. And initially, because I watched it on the first week, and the first week it looked like it did look like it was a training session. You know, you would have had difficulty to sort of, you would have thought it was just a squad of players training together. But the intensity over the weeks, I've got to say, because I didn't watch it last week, but I watched it some of the games the week before, and I would say the intensity has, you know, ratcheted up quite a bit. You know, as the games have gone on and the players have got more used to the environment and things like that. And I do expect things like that, you know, in the Premier League whenever it restarts. And hopefully at the end of the day, you know, all Saints fans are hoping that we get those wins required and maybe a draw as well, you know, because I just think the sooner we can get the wins under our belts, the better, you know, and then the pressure's kind of off. Because what you don't want is going into the last 2 or 3 games and you're still needing results, you know. But the good thing is I'm going to try and be positive about it and end on a positive note about Norwich before we move on to Arsenal, and say Saints with the bookies are 33-1, right? And the bookies rarely get it wrong. And 33-1, even in the circumstance that we're in, to me that is a fairly big number. Yes. Yep,
I agree with that. So, just a quick update actually ahead of the Norwich game as well. Obviously the press conference was on this afternoon at St Mary's with Ralph. He's obviously said they're very happy to be back in business. It's been a short pre-season for every club. The players are hungry over the break and been training hard. He says the young players have shown they want to push hard. I'm sure in 9 games we'll see some of them performing quite well for us. He's also confirmed, bit of good news ahead of the Norwich game for everyone, bit of stability. Ralph Hasenhüttl's confirmed that James Ward-Prowse will wear the captain's armband for the remainder of the season.
After what happened, you know, in the pre-season friendly with Bristol, are we surprised by that news? No.
Not really. Well, the only other thing I would say is when Saints actually played their first choice centre-half pairing, we didn't actually concede any goals against Bristol City. When we went with our supposed second choice, we conceded twice. Yeah. If we start with our first choice centre-half, we should do okay. I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 Saints win.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be even more definitive than that, and I'm going for a Saints 2-0 win.
Nice one.
And all I would say is, just in closing, Mark, all I would say is let's hope, right, that Ralph learns from the Bristol City game and doesn't play James Ward-Prowse at right back. I don't want to see that on Friday night because I will be incandescent.
Okie dokie. Right, moving on. Come on, you Reds. Right,
come on, you Saints from me, and yeah. Oh, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Don't forget, it is actually free to view on Sky's Pick channel and also on Freeview. So don't forget that. You can actually see it, Saints fans. Free to view on the Pick channel and on Freeview. Right. Sums everything up brilliantly today, Mark. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. And as I always say to all the listeners, stay safe, stay well, you know, look after each other. And yeah, and hopefully, you know, when we come to record again, you know, it's positive news from those 2 fixtures.
Absolutely. And the only other thing to add is thank you very much for tuning in today. Join us again next week, Mark C and Mark H, when the 2 Saints go marching in again. Bye for now.
Bye.